Welcome to the Loch Rannoch workshop. This is lesson 2. If you missed lesson 1 or you want to jump ahead to another lesson, click on the link below to access the whole workshop. Now in lesson 2, we're starting out very similar to lesson 1. In fact, our first bar of lesson 2 is the same as the first bar of lesson 1. So we're in line 1 here, so that means, this bit we've already done before. This is how we start lesson 2. And that's exactly how we started lesson 1. The only difference is we started lesson 1 from our introductory E note. Remember that? This time we're starting from an F instead of an E. That's the only difference. And it's because we ended our lesson 1 phrase on the F. So just to quickly review, F down to low A without the grace note. We're just dropping down those 2 fingers, this time of the top hand, down to low A. Pretty easy transition. With the grace note, that top finger has to lift before we bring down the other 2 fingers, and then the top finger comes down. So that's the only difference in this part of the music. And if you're a little bit confused where I'm talking about the transition from the F at the end of bar 2 going down into that low A at the start of bar 3. Bar 1 and bar 3 are the exact same. And if you don't know what I mean by bar, a bar of music or a measure of music is the chunk of music in between 2 vertical lines. And now you know. Now you know some good music theory. And if you want to know more music theory, we'll be talking in lesson 3 about where to tap your foot in this sheet music in 6/8 time. So we'll save that for lesson 3. But lesson 2, we do have this 4th bar of music. Now that you know what the bar is, we have this 4th bar of music in the first line that we need to cover. And then I'll play through the whole line for you in a nice phrase here. So going into the final bar, the 4th bar of music of line 1, again, we're coming at it from an F, right? So that's the end of bar 3. We're on an F going into bar 4 without embellishments to start, and then we'll add in those doublings and a grace note in a moment here. So going into bar 4, we're on the F already. And we got 2 C's in a row, so we'll have to do some sort of embellishment there. But first, let's just talk about that note transition from F down to E. I think we've done that before. It's a pretty easy one. Just drop down the middle finger, and then from E down to C. Now, I think we've done C to E, but not E to C. So let's talk about that one. So E to C. We're going to drop down the ring finger of the top hand. At the same time, we drop down the pinky finger of the bottom hand. And we lift up those middle 2 fingers of the bottom hand. So quite a few fingers on the move, but I know you can do it with a little bit of practice. Okay, so we're on to C. Now we have 2 C's in a row. Bagpipes aren't like other instruments where we can break the notes with our tongue or stop blowing. Well, on the practice chanter we can, but on the bagpipes it's got continuous air supply from the bag, so we have to separate those 2 C's with something. If you're not doing the doubling, which I'll teach in a moment, we're just going to do a big fat G grace note, top finger of the top hand. That's the first half of the doubling anyway. We're just doing one of those. And I'll show you the doubling in a moment. But that will break up those 2 C's in a row. After those 2 C's, we're going to drop down to the B. So from C to B, it's just one note down the scale, but the tricky thing is remembering to lift up that pinky finger as you drop down that middle finger of the bottom hand. That's from C down to B. Okay, so let me play the last bar of line 2 for you without embellishments, and I'm starting on the F at the end of bar 3. And let me play for you bars 3 and 4, starting on the F at the end of bar 2. And then let's talk about embellishments. So embellishments in bar 3, it's the same as bar 1. We've already done that. So let's talk about embellishments at the end of the line in bar 4. From the F down to the E, we're going to do a doubling. This is our first doubling of the tune. Awesome. Well, other than the high A half doubling there. That's what we're doing. So what's happening there is I am doing a G grace note to get down from F to E, and we've done that before, right? That was lesson 1. Top finger has to lift before the bottom finger comes down, and then the top finger comes down afterwards. That's the first half of the doubling. Second half of the doubling, we're already on the E. We're going to lift up our middle finger up and down. That's the second half of the doubling. So that's the second half. So let's put both halves together. Oh, we have another doubling here. This one's a little bit easier because we're not transitioning from one note to the next note. We're just staying on the C. And the first half of this doubling, when we're just staying on the C, is that G grace note up and down. Second half, we want to make sure that first grace note finishes before the second grace note comes up, because then we can hear both and it will sound like a double, sound like a doubling. The second grace note is the D finger, up and down. So make sure the top one finishes before the bottom one starts, and then you can start to tighten them up, get them closer together, and make the grace notes shorter and shorter. And then we have just one embellishment left. From the C down to the B, we're going to do, this is new, we're going to do an E grace note. So yes, there's another grace note. It's the E finger is going to lift up, then you do your note transition down to B, then the E finger comes back down. And make sure that E finger is the first to move before the bottom hand moves, and make sure the bottom hand's all done its movement before the E finger comes down. Otherwise you'll kind of get a bit of a crossing noise or an extra little blip in there. So let me play this last bar in line 1, starting from that F at the end of bar 3, with the embellishments. Once more, since this is new from lesson 2. Great, and it's kind of a cool ending to the line. So I'll play through the whole first line with embellishments, nice and slow for you. But again, check out the link below to access all the lessons, all 6 lessons of the Loch Rannoch workshop. And thanks so much for joining me, and until next time, happy piping!